This here should be title 1.2 slope. Slope means in German Steigung. You know the word slope from the context of, for example, traveling by car, a steep street up, or hiking, walking up the hill, or even riding a bike up the hill. So the slope tells us how steep is the street. Here we have a situation symbolized, here the horizontal and here the street going upwards. What is now meant if we say, for example, the slope is 30%? Let us assume that we travel from the bottom up to this point here. So we have traveled the distance a dash in horizontal distance and the height b dash in vertical distance. If we travel until here, then we have traveled in total a double dash in horizontal distance and b double dash in vertical distance. Or another example, if we travel up to this point here, we have traveled a triple dash in horizontal distance and b triple dash in vertical distance. When we look now at the ratio between the vertical distance covered and the horizontal distance covered, so we see that this ratio is always the same because the triangles are similar. And we use this to define the slope as the ratio between the vertical distance and the horizontal distance. So the slope is b dash divided by a dash, and that is the same like b double dash divided by a double dash, or b triple dash divided by a triple dash. And a slope of 30% or 0.3 means that per 100 meters horizontal distance, the altitude gained is then 30 meters. And the slope is in general defined as the altitude or vertical distance divided by the horizontal distance. Instead of talking about the slope, we could also talk about this angle here by which the street is inclined. And there is a direct relationship between the angle and the slope, obviously, and we can find it by construction, or we can also find it by calculation, as we will find out in this chapter of trigonometry. Let us look at some examples and think for a moment, what does a slope of 100% mean? What do you think? What angle does it correspond to? Well, the solution that is that the slope of 100% corresponds to an angle of 45 degrees. We have here a right triangle, and since the slope is 100%, this means that the ratio of this side, of the vertical side to the horizontal side, is 1 to 1. So we have an isosceles right triangle, and the angle here is 45 degrees. What is the slope of 200%? Think about it for a moment before I continue. Okay, the angle is not 90 degrees as you might have thought. Instead, we get an angle of approximately 63 degrees. Well, 1 unit to the right and then 2 units up. That means a slope of 200%, 2 to 1. If the angle here was 90 degrees, as you may have thought, well, then the slope would be infinity, because we would have here an infinitely high side. From these examples, we see that if the angle here is given, I can find the slope by construction, and also, as we have done here, if the slope is given, I can find by construction the angle. Let us now look at some examples. To find the slope corresponding to theta equals 40 degrees, we sketch now here the 40 degrees angle, and then let's read off the slope by, for example, measuring 3 centimeters to the right, and from there vertically up. And when we measure the length of this vertical line, we get approximately 2.5 centimeters. So we find that the slope corresponding to the 40 degrees is approximately the 2.5 centimeters divided by 3 centimeters, which is approximately 84%. In the second example, the slope is given, it's 12%, and we want to find the angle. Well, let's start by drawing 12% slope by drawing a line of, let's say, 10% length, and then this means that it has to be is 10% vertical, horizontal line, then we need 1.2% vertically. 10 centimeters horizontally and vertically, this means perpendicular to that, senkrecht dazu, 1.2 centimeters. And then we can measure the angle, theta, and we get that theta is approximately 7 degrees. Try now example 3 and 4 on your own, stop the film and continue it once you're done to verify that you've got it correctly or see if you had problems how to do it correctly. We have first constructed the angle of 25 degrees. Now let's measure 3 centimeters horizontally. Measure now the line that is vertical. And we get approximately 1.4 centimeters. Obviously, if you have chosen another length here, you'll get a different length here. And so we get for the slope corresponding to 25 degrees, approximately 47%. In example 4, let us create the slope of 23% by constructing first a right-angled triangle with the length horizontally 5 centimeters and 23% of 5 centimeters being 1.15 centimeters vertically. And we can read off the angle corresponding to the slope of 23% as approximately 13 degrees.